Police Gazette, New South Wales, March 1894. Constable Jenkins reports that a large brown snake entered the police station through the open door and coiled beneath the desk. The serpent struck at the officer's boot 3 times before being destroyed with a shovel. 2 prisoners in the cells witnessed the incident and refused to leave their cells for the remainder of the day. This isn't folklore. This is an official police record. Between 1850 and 1960, Australian police documented thousands of wildlife encounters not as curiosities, but as legitimate threats to law enforcement operations. Snakes invading courtrooms, cassowaries charging mounted officers, crocodiles attacking prisoners during transport. These archives reveal something historians rarely discuss. For over a century, Australian police weren't just fighting crime, they were fighting the continent itself. The Queensland Police Gazette, 1888, contains this remarkable entry: police horse Wellington destroyed after being attacked by a cassowary on the Innisfail track. The bird disemboweled the animal with a single kick. Constable Murray narrowly escaped with severe lacerations to his left arm. The cassowary was tracked and shot the following day. This wasn't rare. Throughout the late 1800s, mounted police in northern Queensland filed regular reports of cassowary encounters. These birds, standing 6 feet tall with dagger-like claws, considered police horses a territorial threat. During World War II, American and Australian troops stationed in New Guinea were officially warned to steer clear of cassowaries. Ornithologist Thomas E. Gilliard wrote in 1958, "The inner or second of the 3 toes is fitted with a long, straight, murderous nail which can sever an arm or eviscerate an abdomen with ease." But decades before these warnings, Australian police were learning this the hard way. The Victorian police records from the 1870s reveal another pattern. Snake invasions during summer months would temporarily shut down rural police operations. One station in Bendigo recorded 17 separate snake incidents in a single summer, including one where a tiger snake fell from the ceiling onto a sergeant's desk during an interrogation. The suspect, according to the report, became hysterical and confessed immediately. Western Australian records from the 1890s document something even more disturbing. Police camps in the Kimberley region were regularly abandoned due to saltwater crocodile activity. One entry from 1897 reads, "Camp relocated for the 4th time this month. Crocodile of considerable size took Constable Morrison's dog from within 5 yards of the fire. 2 Aboriginal trackers refused to continue until dry season." These weren't isolated incidents. They were systematic disruptions to law enforcement operations across the continent. The Tasmania Police Gazette, February 1902, Constable Davies killed by Tasmanian tiger during pursuit of escaped convict near Woolnorth. The animal, believed to be protecting a den, attacked without provocation. Davies died of blood loss before assistance arrived. The convict was recaptured 3 days later. By 1902, the Tasmanian tiger or thylacine was nearly extinct, but police records show that in their final decades, these apex predators still posed legitimate threats to officers working in remote areas. What makes this record extraordinary is what it reveals. A police officer was killed by an animal that would be extinct. Within 34 years, during an active manhunt for a dangerous criminal, the wildlife was more dangerous than the convict. Since 1791, there have been 639 recorded shark attacks in Australia, with 190 being fatal. Since shark netting began in 1937, deaths from sharks on beaches have been significantly reduced. But before shark nets, before beach safety programs, police were the first responders to shark attacks. Their records are harrowing. New South Wales Police Gazette, January 1919, officers responded to shark attack at Coogee Beach, victim retrieved in 3 pieces. Witnesses report shark measuring between 12–15 feet. Beach patrol increased. Public advised to avoid water until further notice. The clinical language of police reports makes the horror even more stark. They weren't writing for newspapers. They were documenting operational realities. South Australian police records from the 1920s contain multiple reports of officers being bitten by funnel web spiders while conducting arrests. The Sydney funnel web carries a powerful neurotoxin and is responsible for 13 of Australia's 27 recorded deaths from spider bites in the past 100 years. One 1924 report describes an officer who was bitten during a home raid. Constable Thompson bitten on right hand while searching premises for stolen goods. Spider identified as funnel web. Officer survived after 36 hours of severe symptoms, including muscle spasms and difficulty breathing. Suspect escaped during medical emergency. The criminal got away because a spider intervened. but the most disturbing records involve ongoing operational disruption situations where wildlife didn't just attack once, but repeatedly interfered with police work. Queensland police reports from the 1930s document a terrifying pattern. Prisoner transport through crocodile country was essentially Russian roulette. One entry from 1934, transport of prisoner Walker from Normanton to Burketown delayed indefinitely. Previous route deemed unsafe after crocodile took horse from mounted patrol. Alternative route adds for days to journey. Prisoner remains in custody awaiting safe passage. Think about what this means. The justice system was being held hostage by crocodiles. Trials were delayed. Sentences were postponed. The legal system adapted its schedule around apex predators. Since crocodile protection measures began in Western Australia in 1969, Australia has recorded 44 fatal saltwater crocodile attacks. But before protection, when crocodiles were hunted aggressively, police records suggest encounters were far more frequent. They just weren't categorized as attacks but as operational hazards. Western Australia police records from the 1950s reveal something almost comical if it weren't so dangerous: magpie attacks caused injuries including wounds to the head and eyes, with potential for bacterial infections. Multiple police reports from Perth describe officers unable to complete patrols during September-October nesting season because magpies would dive bomb them repeatedly. One 1956 report reads, Constable Williams returned to station after magpie attack resulted in head laceration requiring 6 stitches. Patrol route temporarily altered to avoid aggressive birds' territory. Law enforcement routes, the literal paths police walked, were determined by where angry birds were nesting, but nothing compares to the mouse plague entries. South Australian Police, 1917, station evacuated temporarily due to mouse infestation, records contaminated, evidence in 3 cases compromised. Recommend all rural stations implement secure storage for case files. This was 1917. Over a century ago, mouse plagues were destroying evidence and forcing police evacuations. Here's what makes these police archives so controversial. They prove that for over a century, Australia's wildlife posed legitimate operational threats to organized government. We don't talk about this because it contradicts the narrative of human conquest. European settlement is framed as taming a wild continent. But police records tell a different story, one where the continent fought back consistently for over 110 years. These records also reveal systematic underreporting. When researchers began digitizing historical police archives in the 1990s, they discovered thousands of wildlife encounter reports that were never included in official statistics. Why? Because they were filed as operational incidents rather than animal attacks. A crocodile delaying prisoner transport wasn't counted as a crocodile attack. A snake invading a courtroom wasn't categorized as a wildlife incident. This means every statistic we have about historical wildlife encounters in Australia is drastically undercounted. The real numbers could be double, even triple what's recorded. And here's the most unsettling part. These encounters shaped legal precedent. Victoria's 1887 Act for the destruction of venomous snakes wasn't passed because of public fear. It was passed because police operations were being so frequently disrupted that the government had to codify snake killing as a legal duty. Queensland. As early cassowary protection laws weren't about conservation, they were about reducing police liability after multiple officers were injured. Wildlife didn't just attack Australians, it forced Australia to rewrite its laws. Between 1850 and 1960, Australian police documented thousands of wildlife encounters that disrupted law enforcement operations across the continent. Snakes invaded stations, cassowaries killed police horses, crocodiles delayed trials, sharks forced beach closures, magpies altered patrol routes, mouse plagues destroyed. Evidence. These aren't stories. They're official records, filed by officers who watched their colleagues get bitten, clawed, and eviscerated by creatures that refuse to acknowledge human authority. The archives reveal something historians rarely admit. For over a century, Australian wildlife wasn't just dangerous. It was operationally disruptive to the functioning of government itself. The continent didn't submit to settlement. It fought back, and the police were on the front lines. Every report, every casualty, every disruption tells the same story. Australia's deadliest opponent wasn't criminals. It was the wildlife, and it's still winning.